Hi, everyone. Happy Friday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Caitlin, can I just get a thumbs up? Are you seeing my screen okay and hearing me okay? Perfect. Wonderful. Well, so nice to have you all here this evening. I know that I am the last presentation before a break and then some really fun breakout sessions. So I am going to try and keep this entertaining, and you all have put so many great questions into the chat. So I'm going to try and address those as we are moving through our time together today. So my name is Amanda Campbell. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm one of our assistant directors of field education. It is really wonderful to get to talk with you and share with you all a little bit about the joy of field education, because it's such an integral part of a social work degree. The Council on Social Work Education, which Claire mentioned earlier, our accrediting body, has designated field education as the signature pedagogy. So what that means is that it really is the primary way that we socialize you into the profession of social work. It's where oftentimes we say where the rubber meets the road, or really is the heart of the field, because it's where you're actually taking your classroom experiences, the work that you are doing and learning about, and applying those out in the community. So field education is a big part of the degree program. As you heard Claire speak about, you'll do a field placement as an integral part of each of the 2 years of your field program if you're in the regular program, or you'll do one field placement as an advanced standing student. And it's an opportunity for you to do more than just check off completing hours out in a field, in a community agency, but to really be reflecting on the learning and the work that you're doing. So thinking about what social work values inform my decisions as I'm engaging with clients or client systems. What knowledge, what theory base am I drawing on in order to guide this intervention that I am a part of? And what skills do I need in this situation? So we know that sometimes people are very excited about field education, and we know sometimes it can bring up a lot of nerves and anxiety, depending on how much experience you've had in the field. We are primed and have amazing field opportunities for students who this is really their first time stepping into a social work role, all the way to those of you who may have been working in this field for many, many years and are coming back to get the degree in order to formalize the education part of your life. So as a field team, there's a team of 7 of us who support field education or the internships that happen out in the community. And so we have developed relationships with over 700 agencies across the state of Colorado and really further beyond that as well. Our community agency partners are really integral to the experience that students have going in and completing their internships out in a community agency. We have field placements in a variety of different settings, which you'll see on this slide here. So schools, hospitals and medical clinics, departments of human services, public libraries, offices of state representatives, community nonprofit organizations, district attorneys' offices, mental health clinics, counseling centers, domestic violence shelters and advocacy organizations, youth mentoring programs, hospices, homeless shelters and services, a variety of different advocacy and policy agencies, and places like skilled nursing facilities. And the really exciting thing about social work as a field, as well as some of the work that we get to do as a field office, is that social workers are moving into new and different spaces and types of settings all the time. And so we as a team are always looking at how do we really continue to cultivate the relationships with our existing agency partners that provide really formative and really transformative sometimes field placements, but also looking at new agencies beyond our current relationships as well. People have a lot of questions right now about what does field education look like? What does an internship look like, given the state of COVID and how that is impacting our world? So I just wanted to name that because I know that that is a big thing to think about as you're considering going into an MSW program and launching into the internship portion of the degree. We have partners who are doing a variety of different types of field placement. So we do have some settings that are still doing on-site work. And so we make sure that they are practicing CDC guidelines to really protect the health and safety of our students, but as well as our community partners and the clients with whom we serve. We also have some placements that have moved into the remote or virtual space. And so there's a lot of using technology and learning about telehealth that's happening, which is something that is a trend that's going to continue on in the field of social work. And there are some that are doing a hybrid or a combination, so on-site as well as some remote learning. Another question that came up a lot was about the possibility of completing your field placement in your employment agency. So for some of you, you may be coming to the MSW program already working in a setting like you see on the screen, and perhaps are interested in continuing to complete your employment with the agency, as well as do your internship there. And that is something that we do allow for within our program. There are some special parameters that we put in place to make sure that students who are doing their internship at their place of employment are still really getting a learning experience. And so in order to make that happen, there is the need to identify new learning tasks and activities, a different supervisor who is not your employment supervisor, and to schedule your hours or your time in your internship as a bit separate from your work hours. So there's minimal role confusion or dual roles that you're running into as you're completing your internship. So next I'm going to talk about what the structure of field education looks like. So on this slide, what you'll see is the 2-year regular program components. So the foundation year is the first year in the MSW program. And this is really geared at a generalist experience. So helping to level the playing field, if you will, with folks who are coming to the graduate level of practice and maybe coming from a variety of different backgrounds or different disciplines. So within the generalist foundation year field placement, there are opportunities to engage at a variety of different levels of practice, micro, meso, and macro. And students typically are doing their internship about 16 hours a week for the 15-week semesters in both fall and spring. So all field placements begin in fall and they wrap up at the end of spring semester. So you can count on completing 480 hours in your internship or your field placement over the course of the 2 semesters. As a part of field education, you are also going to participate in a bi-weekly, so every other week, field seminar. And that is really to help you integrate that classroom learning with the work and the learning that you're doing out in the community. That is also a space to be able to get to know some of your peers and the work that they're doing out in their internship agencies, which supports everyone's professional development. Another really foundational piece of the field experience, as well as our accreditation requirements, is having weekly supervision. So every student who's completing their internship must be doing an hour a week of supervision by someone who has a social work degree. And that does count towards those 16 hours a week, but that really is where you'll get a lot of support and opportunity to talk about your ongoing development as a social worker. As a concentration year student, or the second year in the MSW program, you'll look on the right-hand side of the screen. This is the more advanced or specialized experience in your internship. For those of you who have or are getting your bachelor's in social work, you would be, as an advanced standing student, jumping straight into that concentration year field placement. And so that requires 20 hours a week, 300 hours each semester, or 600 hours for the full year. Again, there's a biweekly field seminar, and you'll have the same requirement for an hour of weekly supervision by your internship supervisor. Now, seeing those numbers on the screen may give some folks a bit of pause. And so we do encourage individuals who are considering the MSW program to really begin thinking and planning now about what taking on that commitment may look like, because it is a large amount of time that you're dedicating each week to your internship and to being out in the field. And that is on top of taking classes and the many other life responsibilities that you have. So be thinking about how you may integrate that. Someone asked a great question earlier about, is it possible to work full-time Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and to do your field placement and to do coursework outside of that? I will say that there are some possibilities to do internships on evenings or weekends, but they are more limited than those placements that have more typical business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So I encourage you to just be thinking about how you may navigate those different responsibilities. So this I'm going to give you is just an overview of what that process looks like to get your field placement or to get set up with your internship. Don't worry about all of these details or recording all of this. Our field office does a lot of work in helping to support students along the way. And so as an accepted student into the program, we would be sharing all of this information. However, I think it's helpful just to give you a sense of what things you may want to be planning for and taking into consideration. So once students have been accepted into the MSW program and have confirmed their enrollment, our field office begins communicating with them, and that will be through your MSU Denver email address. The first step is inviting you to one of our field education information sessions. And so those are really geared at helping you, number one, understand really the goals and the mission and the structure of what field placement looks like, as well as the process of applying for and accepting and securing a field placement. As a program, we do not just assign students to an agency and say, this is where you're going to be doing your internship. We really try to empower student choice and student engagement through that process, but it does mean that then there's a bit more work and responsibility on your end. So we'll hold information sessions beginning in January for those students who are accepted at the priority deadline. And for students who are accepted at the regular admissions timeline in April. After going through the field information session, you will be assigned a placement navigator, and that's a member of our field team who will be your designated go-to point of contact. And so they will be the person who helps to walk you through step by step this process so that you never feel like you're alone or having to manage this all on your own. There is a field application that we have you complete so that we can get to know a little bit more about you, your background, your interests, as well as your hopes and goals for the field. And then there is a process of going through our database. We have an online database to be referred to agencies that would be appropriate for you, given your student level, given your background, and given some of your interests and what you'd like to get out of your field placement. Then you would begin applying to those agencies. And so submitting a cover letter and resume and then going on interviews is a part of that application process. So it's important to be thinking about that and be ready over the course of the spring to start applying to agencies. We do really encourage students who want to make sure that they have the widest variety of field placements to apply, if you can, for the priority deadline. There are some agencies that begin accepting students as early as March. And so that gives students who have been accepted during the priority deadline just the best chance to get access to all of those agencies. But rest assured, we have plenty of agencies for students to be able to apply to and complete placements with. And I'm so sorry, we have a little visitor joining me today.
Can I get talking?
Not right now, bud.
Can I get talking?
And so there's the application, the interview process, and then each agency may have a background check that you may need to go through. If you have questions or concerns about background checks, feel free to reach out to me or to our field office, and your placement navigator would be able to help support you with navigating any of that as well. Our goal is to ideally have students be able to confirm their field placements by the middle of June, just so that you're ready to go as we begin with the fall semester. In order then to get everything off and ready, there is a field experience orientation that happens with the beginning of the semester, and then field kicks off in middle of August with the start of the fall semester. So at this point, I have a few more minutes, and I'm happy to field questions that may have come up in the chat, which I have not been watching. But Caitlin, if there are any that people would like to respond to, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yes, so we have 5 minutes before we take our break. So I am going to respond, I'm going to vocalize your questions from the chat for Amanda, just to keep things from being too intense with trying to mute and unmute folks.
Thank you.
So I saw some folks asking things about, are there positions in the court system? If we know what field we want to go into, can we do field placements in that area? Are there substance abuse placements? So can you talk a little bit about just the wide variety of placements that we have?
Absolutely. We have an incredible variety, diversity of different types of agencies. And as I mentioned, there are new fields or new agencies that folks are going into all the time. And so there are definitely substance use agencies there are some that are more clinically focused, some that are going to be more policy or systems or advocacy focused. So this is a great way to be able to really customize some of your degree program. I know that there were questions earlier about folks choosing a pathway or how do you explore multiple pathways. And I think that your internship, your field experience can really be a nice complement to either build out some experience in an area that maybe you're not focusing on as much in your coursework, or vice versa. Maybe it really aligns well and helps you to deepen your understanding and your practice based on some of the courses that you're taking. We know that we have some students who come in with a very clear idea of what their path is and where they're headed, what they're interested in, and that is fabulous. We are happy to work with those of you who kind of check that box to help guide you to field placement agencies that can help support your continued interest in a specific area. We also have students who come in saying, I know that my interest, my values really align with social work, but I'm not really sure who I want to work with or what type of setting that may be. Maybe I'm interested in working in school settings with youth, but I also am really interested in older adults and thinking about a medical facility. And so that can be some of the benefit of the 2-year program, as those of you who are in a Bachelor's of Social Work program know your field experience really gives you such a good insight into what career options may look like. And so the regular program does give you 2 different opportunities to be at different agencies and to try something out that you're curious about. Nothing is going to pigeonhole you down a certain track, but rather all of the skills that you'll get in field are really transferable, and you can take them from one field or one setting into a different one very easily.
You just also answered a question that Sierra just asked with that last sentence there.
Perfect.
I saw Jordan ask if someone does do an employment-based field placement, can they get paid for their field hours?
So some of that has to do with what the agency's requirements are. We do work with different agencies, some of whom support employment-based field placements and do allow those students while they're completing even those internship hours to be paid for that time and for those hours. There are some agencies that do have more stringent rules around that. We personally, or as a team, feel like it's really important that if students are able to be paid, whether that be through a paid internship, a stipend, through an employment-based setting that will provide some compensation, we think that's great. And so we can talk through any of those parameters that the agency or that you may need to take into account if you're pursuing that.